Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 26 of the Memorial Memo KSR's Kentucky Women's Basketball Podcast. Now, as you can see, I'm in a different spot. It's because today we have a special episode where I have a one-on-one interview with Kentucky head coach Kenny Brooks. So, starting with when you were hired at Kentucky, because you've emphasized multiple times you weren't looking to leave Virginia Tech, but what was it like, being contacted by Mitch, by UK, and then that whole process kind of just leading you to coming here?
It was a whirlwind. It was a very emotional time for me. I think it's well documented that my wife was going through a medical situation. And then that also, just 2 weeks prior, lost my best player, to a season-ending injury that really derailed our hopes of going far in the NCAA tournament. So it was a very emotional time for me. So when I did get the call, I just prayed a lot. Prayed a lot, talked with my family a lot about the situation, had an open mind to it. Went in and, everything was good, that I'd heard, so I wanted to continue to listen. And then continue with prayer and, talk with my wife. She was on board, even in her state. And so we decided to take that leap of faith and come to Kentucky, and I'm glad we did.
Pardon me for not knowing the exact time, but was Chrissy still being treated during that time?
Yes.
So, what was that? I have to ask, because, what's it like trying to manage? I'm getting a new job. I got to move to a different state. My wife's getting treated, driving back and forth, moving. How do you even begin to do all that?
You know what? Sometimes when I look back on it, I'm wondering, why did I do it? It's crazy that I was doing it because, then you add in the animosity that, the Virginia Tech fans had for leaving and, looking for anything they could to latch onto it. All the while, the most important thing for me was family. I remember catching a lot of grief for not going to the WNBA draft last year. But people don't know that I had to be at my wife's treatment the very next morning, and I didn't have a private jet to get me from one place to another, and family was the most important thing to me. And I never missed a treatment with her, and I wasn't going to miss a treatment, with her, and I'm glad that I didn't miss a treatment with her, and that's the most important thing to me. But it was a very difficult time, very difficult season last year, because for the first 3 or 4 months of the her being diagnosed, we kept it to ourselves, and I say ourselves, just me and Chrissy. And so I was going through a season with that on my chest, and then when we finally told people, the power of prayer really helped us through it. And then once we were starting to get through it, then I upended us and came to Kentucky. So it was very difficult, but she was very, very supportive. She knew this was an opportunity that we couldn't pass up, so she was all on board, and she gave me the thumbs up.
You were born and raised in Virginia, played at James Madison, coached there, coached at Virginia Tech. What was it like finally kind of branching out and then, leaving the Commonwealth of Virginia to come the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
Well, it's funny because, everyone kept saying, oh, he'll never leave. When I was at James Madison, they were like, he'll never leave. He's a Virginia boy. Then I went to Virginia Tech. Well, he'll never leave. But, through my profession, I travel all the time, so it's not like you're just deep-rooted in a place that you never leave the city limits. To always look at different ventures, you're always, one step ahead, because in our world, you don't have weeks and months to, ponder whether or not you're going to stay or go. You have a few days, essentially. And so you're always thinking about it. And so it was always on my mind that it could happen. So leaving the Commonwealth, coming to Kentucky, there's not a lot of difference. There's not, it's just the colors of the uniform. Fan bases are very avid in what they support. Kentucky's a little bit different, but it hasn't been that much of an adjustment.
How much have you felt BBN's presence? Because you talked about, I can't even go to Kroger or Target or the Summit, wherever. Just how much have you felt BBN in your time here so far?
They're everywhere. But you know what? And I've said it 100 times. They're a very respectful fan base. I can be out and I don't feel like that you're being bothered. You're just being acknowledged and celebrated is too strong of a word, but they love their basketball here. They're very appreciative of what you do and your time that you give to the profession. And it's been a joy. It really has, whether I've been at the Keeneland or Kroger or the Summit or wherever. Everyone's been very, very respectful, and they come up and, you always want to know that people are paying attention. And they are. They pay attention, and they're very knowledgeable, and not just in the game, but, what you're doing, who you're recruiting, what situations. And that's what you want, especially in women's basketball. We fought so hard for just recognition. And now when you have a fan base that's really following your every move, that's a good thing, and it keeps good pressure on you too.
Obviously, it helped on the court when you're playing the games, but how much does it help to have, like Georgia came in, Strack, you're pretty much your whole staff at Tech, just, how much did it help, just outside of basketball to have all them kind of come along with you to help adjust?
It says a lot, when you're a coach and you go from one school to another school, and you have players that follow you, you have coaches who follow you. It means that you have a family type atmosphere and one that people want to be a part of. And that's the way we operate. We're a big family. We do a lot of things together. I spend more time with Lindsay and Rad than I do with Chrissy, my wife. And sometimes I call them my work wives. Rad knows my Starbucks order, just like that. What I like. But it's very important, that we have that strong relationship, and players as well. Georgia is well documented our relationship. Clara Strack, she's the next one in line. She very quickly said she wanted to follow suit, and that just means that you have something going the right way. And we treat our kids great. We love them, and they want to come here and play. And I think that was a big reason for our instant success, is because we had familiarity all throughout. Whether we hit the ground running. I remember the first week that that Rad and Lindsay and Tim came. My head was spinning. And as soon as they got here, it was almost like the calm, because things started to fall into place. And so we were ahead of the curve in that manner, and were able to get some things done. And then the recruits started falling into place. Once we got Georgia on board, Clara was on board, we had some credibility. And then when they all got here, just instant, chemistry because of our familiarity with each other. And that helped us. Even through the devastation of losing 2 players in the summer, we were still, no one panicked. We still knew we had to reinvent ourselves. But we had that great foundation and that familiarity with each other of family, and then we were able to prosper after that.
I'm glad you brought up losing 2 players in the summer, because you probably pencil them in. I think you've mentioned this. You've probably penciled them in as starters.
Yeah.
And, last year was so different because you come here and, oh gosh, I have to put together 13 players from all over the place. Obviously, I had a little bit of continuity with some of the recruits and then Georgia and Strack. But, what was it like? Because I imagine that's probably the first time in your career you've had to throw an entire team together from scratch. What was that like?
It was crazy. Not only did we have to put together the whole roster, we essentially had to put together the whole schedule. I think when I got here, they had 2 games. And we had to get, I think, maybe 11 or 12 more games. And so, again, having that familiarity, we were able to say, okay, hey, you take this area, you take that area, we'll conquer it all. We'll divide and conquer. And but putting together the roster, and we were fortunate because we brought in, Clara, Gabby, and Georgia, who had already played for me, and they saw how we did everything. And then we had the familiarity of knowing Lexi Blue, because she committed to Virginia Tech, Amelia Hassett, Clara Silva at the time. We knew them, and then we had to go out and get some just some peripheral pieces. And I knew Tiani Key since she was about 11 years old. I knew of Deja Lawrence, who actually played for Coach Gregory at UNC Charlotte. So we brought in the pieces, and I've said it before, when you go in the portal, you don't always want to get the best player. You want to get the right player. And that's what we set out to do. That's what we set out to do this year in the portal. And I think we're really able to accomplish our goals once we had that chemistry together. And last year was probably one of the most enjoyable seasons that I had because of that chemistry that they developed.
Now, when you got here, obviously you were told, a lot of the different things about Kentucky, but Big Blue Madness, kind of its own different thing. Now, because that night a lot happened. Rick Pitino came back to Kentucky, but then your entrance. That was something that people really, really enjoyed. Just what was your thought process behind, the entrance?
Going into it, I really didn't give it much thought. I'm not the showman. I can definitely be behind the scenes and be okay with it. But then when I got to thinking about it and start researching it, I didn't research it, but my staff did. Obviously, Coach Mitchell was a showman, and he's here every year. I think it was something huge that he did. And so I didn't understand really the magnitude of the entrance or my performance until a couple of days before. So I didn't even really have time to think about it. And then just on a whim, came up with it, with the entrance. I think we practiced it one time, as a walkthrough. But when we did it, as we were doing it, it felt special. It felt special. And we're going through and the cameos, from scratch to Coach Pope, and everyone stepping in. My daughter walked out there with me. And then when we got around the corner and I hit the stage, it was a good thing that I blacked out, because I would have probably freaked out if I didn't, because you're going into an arena with 24,000 people screaming, excited about everything that's going on. And I think I blacked out for a couple of seconds, and it's a good thing, because at least now we have a what do you call it, a GIF or GIF?
Yeah, the fist pump.
So that was something we've been able to use for a very long time. But it was an exceptional night. I thought our girls performed well. I actually learned a little bit about our girls, because I watched and I saw Deja Lawrence shoot in front of 24,000 people with no, not scared at all. Amelia Hassett, she jumped up there and she made some shots. But it was a really good night for everyone, and it was a great experience.
Now, I don't know if you know this. At the time, I was doing research about it. The person who invented Midnight Madness, Lefty Jazelle.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, innovator. He is. Lefty Jazelle was my coach in college, and he was the most innovative man in the business. If there was a rule, he wouldn't break them, he would bend them. And right before they would break, he would stop the line. But he was, I remember we did Midnight Madness when he came to James Madison. It was a big deal. And he created that, as he did with a lot of different things. And so he is, as a mentor to me, someone who's influenced my life. He taught me how to be a family man, but also be a coach. He taught me how to incorporate family with your profession. And a lot of times, when you have your family around, you'll get the lazy narrative that oh, there's favoritism, this and that. He taught me that you can do both, and that can help you create a family type atmosphere. And that's something that I always cherish with him. When I played for him, I thought he was the craziest man in the world. I thought he was. But then I find myself doing a lot of the things that he did to us to get us motivated, to get us prepared for a game, to get us prepared for life. And I owe him a debt of gratitude. I was very proud when he went into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And one of my claims to fame was that when he was giving his speech, right in the middle of his speech, he started to reference he had 2 former players that are head coaches now. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh my goodness, he's about to say my name. And then all of a sudden he stopped and he went somewhere else. And I was like, wow. So I called him like a week later and I said, Coach, congratulations, well deserved. And he said, Kenny, he said, I was about to say your name in my speech, but I forgot it. And I said, Coach, that is okay. I know you were thinking about me. That is enough for me. And for me, that was very special, because that was his moment, and during that moment, even though he didn't say my name, he thought about me.
Now, I like how you talked about family and your profession, because I wanted to segue into some of the hot points from this season. And I wanted to start with USC Upstate, very first game, because I don't know how much you recall. Late in that game, Gabby hit a 3.
Yeah.
And I just remember in the press conference, well, actually, I remember at the time, biggest smile I've ever seen. Just, if how much can you recall from that night, that moment? How cool was that?
It was one of the best moments I've ever had coaching. And obviously, I've had the pleasure of coaching all 3 of my daughters. Kendall probably had the most decorated career. She broke the all-time record for 3-pointers by a freshman at Virginia Tech. She's had games where she made 7 3-pointers. So she's had a pretty good career. Chloe's career was marred by injury. She only got to play in a couple games. I remember her hitting her 3. But Gabby obviously is a baby. And she's the self-proclaimed spoiled one. And her sisters will agree. But she's a baby. And to watch her go through, what she's gone through. We were at Virginia Tech, and she was the last of the daughters, and and they catch flack sometimes just because their dad's the coach. Their dad, is the one who gets ridiculed, whether it's on social media or just in the fan base. And sometimes they catch strays, and she's caught strays before, and you want to be protective of her. But when she works as hard as anyone that I've ever had. She will bust her butt. Maybe she might not be the tallest or the fastest or the most gifted, but she's one of the most determined. And she's going to handle her business in that way. And so when she was able to get out on the floor, for the first time I felt nerves while I was coaching. And then when she hit that 3, it was just accumulation of a lot of emotions coming together and being released. And I was so happy for her. I have the picture, in my office where she hits it, and you can see the anticipation on everybody's face about ball about to go in. And that just goes to show you what kind of teammate she is, and the girls love her, and to be able to celebrate and her success was a really big moment for me.
Now, the Louisville game is interesting because you've coached against Louisville and Jeff Walls a million times before, in the ACC title game even. But then you come here, and you said it's different when it's red versus blue.
Yeah.
Louisville game, man, how was that? How was that experience?
My first introduction to the rivalry was when I came here. I had a backpack that I had at Virginia Tech, and it was kind of maroonish reddish. And I brought it here, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, that red." And I'm like, "What's wrong with red?" And I'm like, "Okay, red." And then they started to introduce me to the rivalry, you know, what it meant to the state, you know, how the state was divided, you know, everything. And so I'm like, okay, well, it must be a big deal. All right, so I went from calling it Louisville, that we call it in Virginia, to Louisville, you know, so now I sound like a Kentuckian.
The correct way to say it.
Yeah, the correct way to say it. And leading up to that game, there was so much conversation about it. And I'm like, okay, all right, it's Louisville. I get it, I understand, but I didn't understand. And I didn't know that we hadn't beaten them in a while. You know, I didn't know a lot of things. I'm still trying to learn anything and everything about Kentucky, and I didn't know. And so once I started to grasp, you know, the definition of the rivalry, then the game is upon us. And then it goes to overtime. And then you can feel the electricity in the building, and you just knew something more special than what you anticipated was happening. And then when we actually won the game, I mean, the celebration, you know, just the, it's like the city lit up, you know, and so we beat Louisville. And then the days after, you know, I really found out what it meant. And to me, that was my introduction to the rivalry. And so now I know how real it is, because at Virginia Tech, we were chasing Louisville, you know, for supremacy in the ACC. We caught them at that point. We won a championship against them. But coming here, it's a lot different.
That road game against Oklahoma, where Georgia, I mean, there's a high score, like 95-86. Georgia drops 43. You know, her career high, tied for a program record here. What was witnessing that?
Yeah, you know, I've seen her play 150 games, been in every one of them. That day, she just had a different look from start to finish, you know, start to finish. And so we came out and shoot around, and I was watching her shoot, and I kept thinking to myself, I said, man, she looks good. So I went over to her and I said, you know, your jumper is wet. And she looked at me and I said, do you know what that means? That's kind of like an American term. And she says, yeah, I know. It just feels really good. And I said, all right, I said, you touch it today, shoot it, you know, let it fly. And when we came out, she had a couple shots early that went down, and I said, uh-oh, it's going to be a good day. And her performance throughout the whole game, you know, it probably could have been 50 points, and it probably could have been 12 assists, the way that she was just controlling the basketball game. But I think the biggest thing was watching their fans react to it, you know, watching their coaching staff react to it, because they had never seen her before. And that happened a lot in the SEC. No one had really seen her before. And in the first few plays, they were like, oh, she's faster than I thought. Oh, she's craftier than I thought. And in that particular game, she just took it over, and it was a thing of beauty. It was the best game I've seen her play. I've seen her score 39 against Virginia. I saw her score 31 or so against Caitlin Clark. But that game was hands down the best game I've seen her play from start to finish, the way she controlled it and the way she shot the basketball.
You know, we're going to that game. You're fighting for, you know, positioning in the SEC tournament. Tennessee game, that's another big rivalry, like the Louisville game. How was that? I
learned that as well. And I didn't know, as you mentioned before, I've coached against Tennessee. We've had some success against Tennessee. Kim, we played against her in the NCAA tournament last year. And my mindset was really on finishing strong and trying to get the double bye. And so we knew we had a juggernaut of a schedule. We had Texas, we had LSU, we had Tennessee, and we had South Carolina to end the season. And we needed that game because Tennessee was chasing us. But leading up to it, you know, I kept hearing Tennessee, hey, coach, good luck against Tennessee. And I'm like, you know, what's going on here again? It felt like Louisville all over again. And it was. And they came in, and obviously it had a different feel because here comes that orange uniform in your building, and the place is buzzing. And we knew it was going to be a challenge because of the way they play. But we kind of went off of our experiences from the year before. Playing against the pressure and when it was coming and how to beat it and what areas to look for. And we came out, and they had a pep in their step, and they were ready to go. And we exploited their defense, and the game just kept going, and we just kept making shots. I think Clara Strack. I don't think Clara Strack has missed a shot against Kim in 2 years, and so she played exceptionally. Georgia was wonderful. Everybody stepped up. Tiani was great, and then the next thing I know, we look up and we're going to the fourth quarter. We're up 30 points, and it was just a thing of beauty, the way we handled it, the way we played. Way we executed, and so that would be a game that I'll always remember. If I'm sitting on my dock at the lake and I just want to have a feel-good moment, that's probably a game that I'll pop in.
I think it'd be wrong if we didn't hit on what Georgia and Deja meant to you. I know you've coached Georgia for 5 years now, and then Deja that one. But what did those two mean for you?
They were everything. They were consummate professionals. The way that they handled their business, so that the younger players could follow. And not only were they the leaders on the floor, they led in a way that really made everyone wanted to follow them. And then they took it into the locker room, and undoubtedly they were the leaders in the locker room, and the kids learned so much from them that I think that's going to carry over. I think Tiani is going to take bits and pieces of their leadership, and she's going to become a leader for us. Clara Strack, the same way, Jordan Obi, so on and so forth. But I'll forever be indebted to Deja and to Georgia for helping create the culture here. And they knew nothing about Kentucky. They came in here, they embraced it in a manner that they were able to help teach everyone else how to be a Wildcat.
We spent some time talking about last year's team, but of course we got the future look too. We got this year's team. Kayden Carol. What's she going to bring to the table?
KK is going to be a leader on the floor and off the floor. Her maturity level is through the roof. And we entertained a lot of McDonald's All-Americans in the fall here on campus. But she was the one that we wanted, because she was the one that we felt like was mature enough. Her game fit our philosophies, but just her off the floor. You can have a conversation with her. And I've been recruiting her since we were at Virginia Tech, and just fell in love with her attitude, her demeanor. And so when we got her, we knew we got more than just a basketball player. We got someone that was going to help our culture for the years to come. She's going to be a leader. She's going to help us recruit. And I'm just excited to get her on campus and get going with her.
Now you've officially signed 3 players from the transfer portal, so you can talk about them. That's the fun part of that. We'll start with Josie Gilvin, who your first get went to WKU, now here. Tell us about Josie Gilvin.
When we were about to play Western, obviously you're watching their team and who's going to be a problem and who plays well. And Josie was one that I was like, man, this kid can be a problem. She's just all over the place. I don't know if she has a NIL deal with Red Bull or whatever it is, the energy drinks, but she's just a ball of energy everywhere. And she had a tremendous year for them. Very mature player, plays in a magnitude that is going to really help us, give us some of that depth that we desire. And she shoots the basketball. She's made herself into a really good 3-point shooter. I think she shot it at a high clip of like 41%. And then her defensive tenacity, something that you really can't teach. You just kind of let her go loose because she's going to steal the basketball from somebody somehow, some way. And I think she's a great addition to what we're going to try to accomplish next year.
And then Asia Boon.
Asia Boon, I've had the pleasure of coaching against Asia's sister. So there was some familiarity. When I was at James Madison, her sister played for Wave and Mary. And Asia's different from her sister. She's a pure shooter, great potential as a combo guard, to give us some backup minutes at the point guard. But also out on the perimeter, she can really shoot the basketball. Again, scouting against them, saw her play some really good games against some Power 4 teams. And I think she's going to be something that's going to really help our depth as well. But her ability to shoot the basketball is going to be a welcome addition as well.
Now, speaking of Asia, you actually coached against her again this year in an NCAA tournament for like 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I've heard that she's going to be pretty much good to go for the season. Yeah. If you want to confirm, or
no, she is, and that's something we talked about. She will be ready to go this summer. This summer for us. She had surgery on her foot. I think it's like a 4-week process, and then she had that right after the season. So she'll be ready to go, and we're excited about it.
And now you've got your point guard in this year, Toni Morgan. How about her?
Yeah, so I tell you what. You talk about familiarity. I coached against her a couple of times, and we played them. The last year I was at Virginia Tech, we played them, and we played exceptionally well, and probably would have been a 40-point win. But she just played so, we couldn't stop her. We could not stop her. And she has the ability to get downhill, to score. She's strong. Mid-range game is great. She handles the ball. She facilitates in a manner. There's no question in my mind she'll be a WNBA draft prospect. And having her here to really bridge our point guard situations, and then add that depth, that experience to an already experienced group is something that we knew we needed. And I think we hit a home run with her. And I think she's going to be exceptional for us. Big Blue Nation is going to absolutely love her. And she's going to come in with the right attitude because she's got goals. And that's a pretty good combination. When you have goals and you have an opportunity to be able to be on a bigger stage, I think she's looking forward to taking advantage of it. And like I said, man, that was a situation where we couldn't have asked for any better going into the portal.
Speaking of her potentially being a draft pick, you hosted her on a visit, and shortly after, if I'm right on my timeline, you all went to New York for the draft.
Yeah.
How was it to be like, hey, Tony, it was nice meeting you, but we're actually going to go watch our point guard go be a top 10 pick? Just saying.
Yeah.
Like,
but the great thing is they played against each other, so they know each other. And we didn't even design this, but we knew it was happening. And they actually, Georgia was boarding on gate B4, and Tony was coming out on gate B3.
Oh, wow.
And so they did this, and they actually took a selfie, and they sent it to me before we picked up Tony. But it was great, and it's good because they know each other. They can expand. Tony can ask Georgia. They're almost in not identical situations, but both came here for their last year to be able to prep, to be able to go to the next level. And Georgia laid the blueprint out, and that was a really good thing. That was attractive to her. But they're not close, but they know each other. But it was a really good situation, and everything was lined up for us, and it all worked out.
After the Auburn game on the radio, you said you wanted to get people as excited about Kentucky women's basketball as they are about Kentucky men's basketball. I know that's obviously still the case. Just kind of expand on that goal and what that means to you.
Well, it means a lot because, and it's not jealousy or envy. It's just like, wow, it's impressive how diligently they follow the men here, and if we can just get half of that, that's just going to be something that's through the roof. And I am excited. It does warm my heart when I walk somewhere and someone talks about, hey, I just saw you guys got Tony Morgan, and I'm like, yeah, we did. Or when I talked to Tony's mom, and she's like, yeah, people are messaging and saying, good luck, that's a great choice. She never had that before. And so it does warm my heart, because I've been in this business for 24, 25 years, and just trying to get recognition that the young ladies deserve is something that we've been fighting for. And now you come to a place like this, and you get what you ask for. And so now it's our job to go out there and make people excited. It warms my heart when we see, people, and they're like, we had so much fun at the games. We love the style, love the way the girls play. And that's what we want to provide. Yes, we need to win, but we also want to win in a way that's very, very entertaining, because we want people to come out and enjoy the experience, and they continue to do that. Then you build a program. Nobody wants to win. It'd be good to win 42-40 game every night, but is that fun? You want to watch basketball in its purest form, and we've got the athletes, we got the stage to do it, and so we want to make sure people want to come back.
How would Kenny Brooks describe his first year at Kentucky? You have people like me who would say it was a good year, it was great, but I'm not you, I'm not on the team, I'm just here to yap about y'all.
There's so many different emotions. Emotional, because you leave something that you've known for a long time that you built, you come to something that's totally new. I had to learn how to get to work again. I had to learn how to find my way through this building. I had to learn what it felt like to coach a Memorial. And then you go through, the rigors of a season, the ups and the downs. I had the responsibility of getting Georgia to the WNBA because she took a blind leap of faith to follow me here, and I didn't want that to derail her career. And so there were just so many emotions that go into it. But when I sit back and reflect on it, it was very enjoyable. The way the season unfolded, the group of young ladies that I had the opportunity to work with last year, it was the best. It was the best. And that's no slight to my teams at Virginia Tech or James Madison, but it's just really a compliment to these young women who really sacrificed a lot, put their egos aside, and we won. They won 6 conference games in the previous 2 years. We won 11 this year. we taught them what winning was about. And the way they went about their business, it was just so much fun. We didn't have one kid late for a meeting all year. Their grades were phenomenal. They laughed, they joked. They said thank you when they got a T-shirt. They said thank you to the bus driver for taking them from this spot to that spot. And that just shows culture. And we just had so much fun with it this year, through all the emotions. And it was probably one of the best years I've ever had as a coach, just because of that aspect and the fact that we won.
Now we've got this camera right here. What's your message to BBN heading into year 2?
BBN year 2, we're looking to improve on it. We need your support. You guys were phenomenal all year long. You had Memorial rocking. It was chill bump rocking sometimes, the way that it was in there. The facility is beautiful. We got a great brand of basketball. They're a great group of young women that you will enjoy representing, and they will represent you in the utmost. So we need you guys to come out, fill the stands. I think next year is going to be even more productive. And but I also want to thank you for this past year, for making it memorable, and we look forward to a great future.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Memorial Memo. Of course, as always, like, comment, subscribe, and do all those wonderful things, and we will see you all next time.